Hello, everybody, and welcome to some Monday Night Modern here at Paradise Games. I'm Alex, going to be bringing you 3 full rounds here. We got a nice round 1 here for Modern. We got Pete versus Patrick, which, if you were paying attention, you'll know this was the finals of our 1K last night. So we got a little bit of a rematch here between these two players. We got some Grixis Shadow versus Teamer Breach, it appears. So Teamer Breach definitely looking to do some sort of combo something. We'll see how effective it is at doing said combo thing. As we see Pete starting things off with a Fetch a Shock double cycle Street Wraith means that we're real close here to some Death Shadows entering play, as I believe I do see a Death Shadow hanging out in Pete's hand already. No turn 1 play though for Pete, unfortunately. I'm sure he's relatively unhappy about that, but alright. 2/3/3 Death Shadows on turn 2 is still rather effective as far as all things are considered. Alright, so we've got Arbor Elf, Freed from the Real in hand. A couple Commune with the Gods in hand for Patrick as well. Those are going to help him dig towards the enchantments that he needs to actually combo off here. Let's see what he finds. Uh-oh. Alright, Utopia Sprawl. That one's certainly the best choice here, as he's going to be able to use this Arbor Elf to end up Utopia Sprawling his own breeding pool here. He'll end up being able to make a good bit of mana in the future. He's got a Freed from the Real in his hand, so he's actually just going to be able to untap here with the infinite mana. Not sure if we have a way to use the infinite mana, though, yet, unfortunately. Alright, here's a card for Pete. He's going to Fatal Push Arbor Elf. So, there goes that those visions of grandeur from the infinite mana, as Arbor Elf hits the bin. Here's Pete down to 7. Means that this is a huge attack from Pete, and Patrick's going to need to either win the game this turn or find some way to deal with these Death Shadows, and there's not very many. I'm guessing that there are not very many cards in Patrick's deck that are going to allow him to do that, so we'll see how this ends up going. Land off the top is not a good start for Patrick. He's just going to go ahead and play it untapped. He's at 4. He knows he's dead regardless, so might as well just go to 4. No difference between 4 and 6 on this board. He's got the Underworld Breach in his hand, but it looks pretty unlikely for him to be able to really do anything with it. Of course, Arbor Elf would have Summoning Sickness. I think that he's going to be forced into just casting Commune with the Gods and then conceding. To be honest, I think that's where we're at, which means that if you don't have any outs, there's definitely reason to not cast the Commune with the Gods anyway here. Gonna go ahead and Chronic Flooding our Utopia Sprawl. So we just got Patrick fidgeting around here with his cards. Chronic Flooding obviously doesn't do anything here, unfortunately. Here's the Chronic Flooding. He's going to mill himself for 3. He's going to add blue. Blue from the Utopia Sprawl. Blue from the Breeding Pool. Thassa's Oracle, Fate Stitcher into the bin. Fate Stitchers, definitely a start. That's going to end up netting Patrick 1 additional mana. Alright, here comes another mill 3. He's going to go up to 3 mana here. It's putting Patrick 1 mana short of actually being able to go off with the Freed from the Real here, which would actually be pretty absurd if he ended up getting there. Yeah, unfortunately, just leaving a blue floating. Going to go ahead and commune here. This does leave Patrick the out of being able to find another Fate Stitcher here, but that's no good. All right, I think that's going to be the end here for Patrick, unfortunately, though he did actually have outs if he had hit another Fate Stitcher off of that Chronic Flooding there, or off of that Chronic Flooding trigger, yeah. Excuse me. He actually would have ended up with enough mana to cast the Freed from the Real and then untap and go off, but just barely not enough mana there. And, Patrick actually was a little closer to being able to win that game than I initially thought when I looked at his hand. I mean, I guess the Chronic Flooding was was definitely something, but he did need to hit double Fate Stitcher, so, I guess props to Patrick for finding a line that could have won the game, but obviously it's pretty thin margins there, to be sure. All right, let's take a look at the sideboards here for both the players. Patrick on Teamer Breach, he's got a copy of Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, 2 Veil of Summers, a Hidden Strings, a Chronic Flooding, an Underworld Breach, 1 Freed from the Real, 2 Lightning Bolt, a Natural State, 1 Return to Nature, 3 Seal of Primordium, 1 Ugin the Spirit Dragon, and a Devil's Play. Hello, Brad.
Hello. I peeked my head in because I didn't think we'd fit that whole sideboard onto that screen, but it looks like production did a real good job.
Yeah, we nailed it. So, I think that, so it's worth noting that this Breach deck is a Fae of Wishes deck. So we've got Granted in the deck, so we're doing very similar things to the Pioneer Shell here, where this is a Wish board mostly. So most of these cards are not going to be coming in. As a matter of fact, I don't know, I guess like a couple Seal of Primordiums to play around, like
a Grafdigger's Cage,
yeah.
Or a Leyline of the Void.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I definitely think you're bringing Veil of Summers.
Oh, Veil of Summer, certainly. My mind glanced over that one. Yeah, Veil of Summer looks excellent for sure, and like a couple Seal of Primordiums seem like probably the play. Other than that, I think we're pretty happy to mostly ship it back here. Pete, on the other hand, is probably going to have a little bit more action in the sideboard here. He's got a Plague Engineer, 1 Liliana of the Veil, a Mystical Dispute, 1 Stubborn Denial, 1 Liliana of the Last Hope, 1 Ashiok Dream Render, 2 Anger of the Gods, 2 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Damping Sphere, and 3 copies of Collective Brutality. What do you like out of Pete's deck here?
Damping Sphere is definitely worse here than it is in Pioneer, because you're not turning off the Lotus Field.
Absolutely.
But it does stop just the Chronic Flooding Hidden Strings combo.
Yes.
It doesn't interact with the infinite mana, so I assume that we want that, but it's not entirely certain that you do want that, because you do want to execute your plan A, and so many of Pete's main board cards are so good. Stubborn Denial and Mystical Dispute is a real similar story.
Absolutely.
So those 4 slots you're going to bring in some number of, but I couldn't tell you which and how many. It depends on if you feel like there's anything you don't want.
Totally. Is there any case to be made for like Plague Engineer and Liliana Last Hope to like try and deal with like the Arbor Elf type threat things, or like are we just happy to play our main board removal spells and be happy with it?
I think your main board removal spells are going to do the job. The Teamer deck, so Pete doesn't necessarily know this, but the Teamer deck has 8 creatures in it because Fae of Wishes isn't a creature.
Yep.
So like 4 Fatal Push, and I actually don't know if there's any other removal in the deck other than 4 Fatal Push. If it's exactly that, then maybe you try to bring in probably a Liliana of the Veil, because it also will win the game.
That makes sense. Sure. And then there's...
Oh, I'm sorry, Liliana Last Hope.
Yeah, Liliana.
Veil.
Yeah, Liliana Last Hope. And then there's some Collective Brutalities hanging out as well. Collective Brutality seems like it might be a little awkward. There's a lot of enchantments in the deck, not so many instant sorceries, but you're probably still going to be able to tag at least something with a Duress mode more often than not.
I think it's literally Serum Visions and Commune with the Gods.
Oh, yikes. All right, yeah, that's probably not very many hits. So, probably no good here. So, yeah, a little bit of light sideboarding from both players. This matchup seems probably pretty tough for Teamer Breach. Grixis Shadow, traditionally very good combo matchup combined with a fast clock. Obviously, usually the combo decks don't care very much about their opponent's life total, so Grixis Shadow kind of gets to hurt itself for these advantages for free. And then Obviously, the fast clock backed up with disruption. It's very much akin to the Legacy Delver style decks, and those are traditionally good combo matchups for similar reasons. You find pressure, you back it up with interaction, and usually you force the combo deck to go off before they're ready, and then when they do, you have the answers for it. So
I think I'm gonna peek my head back out. I'll try to get back in, but something I'm realizing. This deck's brand new. We're all theory crafting on this current Team of Breach build.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in this matchup, you were probably better off trading the main board Increasing Confusion for the Devil's Play and switching which one's in the main board, because you might just steal a game by casting a Devil's Play for 5.
That makes sense. Yeah, interesting. All right, cool. Thank you very much for the insight, Brad. All right, let's take a look here as Patrick finds himself on 6 cards in this second game. He'll be on the play, however. He's got the Dryad Arbor in his hand, unfortunately. He might have put that one on the bottom. As a matter of fact, he did, so... Put that Dryad Arbor on the bottom with the mulligan, so he'll have that utility land in his deck for a later turn. He's going to get a Breeding Pool, cast a Serum Visions here, so he'll get to go do some digging, try and set his hand up. His hand is very much not there currently, but, against some of the Thoughtseize decks, this is a totally fine place to be. Interesting here, Veil of Summer. That's one that's probably pretty tough here. If Pete casts Thoughtseize on the first turn of the game, which seems likely, the Veil of Summer won't do anything because it's on top of your deck. However, if Pete takes some extra turns to do things, then the Veil of Summer is going to be really good. And sure enough, Pete not willing to cast the Thoughtseize here on this turn. And then Patrick just taps out. Doesn't even hold up the Thoughtseize anyway. I really don't love this line of play for Patrick. I think if we're hoping our opponent isn't Thoughtseizing on turn 1, so we want to put Veil of Summer on top. Plus, then we're just tapping out and playing right into the counterspells and things that Veil of Summer's trying to protect us against. I don't really love all of that. I feel like if we're putting the Veil of Summer on top, we're saying that we want to play a slightly longer game. We're trying to play with the Veil of Summer and, use it to leverage some cards, find a nice 2-for-1 at some point, but now I think we're going to be in a pretty rough spot here as Pete's going to fire off a Thoughtseize on this turn. Alrighty. So we've got Commune with the Gods, Hidden Strings, and Veil of Summer as the cards in hand. Of course, 2 copies of Commune the Gods here. Pete could easily just take a Commune with the Gods here. It's certainly one of the more powerful cards in Patrick's hand. The Veil of Summer, if he thinks it's going to be awkward down the road, is definitely a fine take. And yeah, sure enough it is. So Patrick going to go ahead and lose that Veil of Summer, unfortunately for him. Here's a draw for Patrick. It's a copy of Arbor Elf. That's a pretty good one, though it's a little awkward as he doesn't have a third land here. Means that Patrick can either choose to deploy the Arbor Elf or cast the Commune with the Gods. He goes with the Arbor Elf here. I agree with this line of play from Patrick. He's going to Thought Scour himself. Will Pete here. He's going to dig Lightning Bolt and Serum Visions into the bin. Stubborn Denial off the top, so probably another Stubborn Denial. Hello. If Pete manages to find a threat here, something along the lines of Gurmag Angler, if there's a Gurmag Angler right now, I think Patrick is going to be really dead in the water, and oh boy, here it is. So this is Gurmag Angler with double Stubborn Denial backup. Pete knows Patrick's hand. He knows every single card in it because Patrick drew and played the Arbor Elf here, so he's going to be well aware that Patrick's hand is not going to be super well equipped, and I think Pete's just going to snap off a Stubborn Denial here on this Commune with the Gods. Here comes a Serum Visions. That one is going to resolve. There's that Dryad Arbor, back at it again. Fate Stitcher and Mountain. Interesting cards here for Patrick. The Fate Stitcher looks pretty good if he could leave it second from the top, because then the Commune with the Gods will be able to put it into the graveyard for Patrick. However, that would also involve leaving Mountain on top when you already have 3 lands here, which kind of leads me to believe that I just want bottom here. Either way, I think it's either going to be bottom or top, depending how important Patrick thinks this Fate Stitcher actually is. I'm leaning not super important, given that we have the Arbor Elf in play already. It's going to be a disaster as well if Patrick's Commune with the Gods ends up getting countered, which I think is very likely given Pete's hand, unfortunately. And oh, yikes! Never mind. Holy cow, that was perfect. Pete thought scoured Patrick after he left both cards on top, and then Patrick, not only did Patrick not want to draw the mountain, but felt like he had to because because he needed to leave a card on top so he could mill the Fate Stitcher. Pete then just milled the Fate Stitcher for him, so that is really brutal here for Pete. Alright, so Pete's going to draw a card off his Mistress Bauble on upkeep. Patrick finds himself a Thassa's Oracle off the top. That's certainly not one of the better ones here. Alrighty. Commune with the Gods. Patrick will look at the top 5. He'll take a Fae of Wishes. It'll enter Patrick's hand here. He's got Fae, Oracle, and Hidden Strings. Once again, Pete well aware of all of the cards. Patrick just going to deploy a Thassa's Oracle here. That's what's happening. Patrick's thinking about casting Fae of Wishes here. Interesting. Just a 1/4 blocker here for Patrick. That one seems a little loose to me, to be honest, but you know, I suppose Patrick is... The Death Shadow is at a life total currently where it could profitably block, and Pete's happy to drown in the locket, get it out of the way, so probably not a terrible interaction here on Patrick's side. Pete to 10 now. Here's an attack for 8. Land off the top for Patrick. That one is not super good here. Thassa's Oracle looks pretty reasonable right now, at least. Obviously, no problem with the Thassa's Oracle dying at any point, because we do get to breach it back later when we combo off, so no worries there. Yep, looks like Patrick is going to go ahead and cast the Thassa's Oracle. He's going to look at the top 2 cards of his library. Hidden Strings, Utopia Sprawl. Well, neither of these really do the thing, so I think those are just going to have to go. Patrick really thinking about these cards. I'm a little curious as to why. Utopia Sprawl does appear to be a combo piece that he is missing, so I suppose that one makes a little bit of sense. And he does actually leave the Utopia Sprawl on top. He's got a Fate Stitcher in the bin, so Patrick's going to end up with a lot of mana here very shortly. Unfortunately, though, only 4 life total means that he's going to be in trouble. Thought Scour Patrick will take the Utopia Sprawl off the top. Thought sees your Hidden Strings here from Pete as well. Here are 2 lethal attackers. Patrick makes the obvious jump blocks here. He's going to need a good one off the top. It's Chronic Flooding. And yeah, that is not going to do it. So that means Pete wins the finals rematch here to start things off in Modern. Nice little play from Pete. So yeah, well played, Pete. I guess he's 2-0 here. He's not looking to stop. He's gone on a complete heater on camera, so he's just gonna run it up in the feature match area, as we like to see. So pretty impressive run